Ink Games started as a creative, chaotic sandbox where players loved experimenting with ink abilities, glitch-based combat, and unpredictable events. Its fast rise came from viral TikTok clips, unique animation style, and the feeling that anything could happen at any moment. But the downfall came just as fast. The first major issue was unbalanced updates. New ink abilities kept breaking the game, and every patch created more bugs than it fixed. Players felt like they were beta testers instead of a real community. Then came the admin drama. Accusations of favoritism, random bans, and chaotic decision-making that shook trust completely. The tipping point was the massive lag and crash update, which made the game nearly unplayable for days. Content creators moved on, the player base dropped instantly, and the dev team couldn't recover the momentum. Mad City was once the contender to dethrone Jailbreak. It had flashy updates, superheroes, villains, crazy vehicles, and a style that felt bigger, louder, and more chaotic than anything else on Roblox. For a while, that explosive energy helped it dominate the front page, but its downfall came from slow updates and bad timing. First, the dev team shifted focus to large, cinematic updates that took months instead of weeks. While they were building huge expansions, players were stuck with the same bugs, same exploits, and the same grinding loop. Meanwhile, Jailbreak kept delivering smaller but consistent updates, slowly pulling players back. The next blow was the hacker wave. Exploiters overran servers, ruining heists, teleporting around, and killing players instantly. Because updates were so slow, these issues stayed for too long. Streamers stopped playing, and the game's hype collapsed. But the real tipping point was Mad City Chapter 2. Doors exploded onto Roblox with one of the most polished horror experiences the platform had ever seen. Stunning animations, iconic entities, deep secrets, and a perfect mix of fear and mystery turned it into a cultural phenomenon. Millions of players speedran it, shared theories, and waited for every new teaser like it was a AAA release. But its downfall wasn't from failure, it was from silence. The game's rise slowed when content updates took too long. Hotel Plus, while amazing, arrived after months of waiting. Players finished it in a few hours, and then nothing. Long gaps with no major patches left the community hungry for new monsters, floors, or lore pieces. Meanwhile, dozens of Doors clones and fan games filled the space with constant content. Players drifted to alternatives that updated weekly, while Doors stayed quiet. Another factor was over-theorizing burnout. Because the devs dropped almost no lore clarifications, the community kept speculating in circles. Piggy became a Roblox titan almost overnight. Its mix of escape room puzzles, creepy mascots, dramatic story chapters, and constant updates kept the entire platform watching. Every new chapter felt like an event. The lore videos, theories, speedruns, and roleplays created one of the biggest communities Roblox had ever seen. But its downfall came from oversaturation and burnout. The first problem was content fatigue. Piggy updated so frequently and added so many chapters that players eventually struggled to keep up. What once felt exciting slowly turned into a long, complicated storyline that casual players couldn't follow. Then came the genre shift. Roblox horror evolved fast. New games with better animations, shorter gameplay loops, and modern mechanics took over the front page. Piggy's older, chapter-based structure began to feel repetitive in comparison. Another major issue was the end of updates. Lumion Legacy launched with enormous expectations. It wasn't just another creature-collecting game. It was the spiritual successor to Pokémon Brick Bronze, one of the most beloved and banned games in Roblox history. The hype was unreal. Players expected a massive storyline, constant updates, and a long-term adventure that could fill the void left by PBB. But its downfall came from slow updates and lost momentum. The first big issue was that the content wasn't coming fast enough. The game released chapter by chapter, with long gaps in between. Months passed with only small additions. a few new Lumions, an event, or minor features, while players were waiting for big storyline progress and new routes. Then, the community faced PvP stagnation. Competitive players wanted variety, balance changes, and new meta shifts, but the game simply didn't update fast enough to keep battles fresh. The competitive scene dried up, and creators who focused on PvP slowly left. Another problem was comparison pressure. Blox Fruits didn't just rise. It dominated Roblox for years. It became the go-to grinding game, fueled by a massive anime fanbase, constant tier lists, YouTube challenges, and endless updates. The huge map, fruit system, fighting styles, raids, and late-game progression created a sense of infinite grind that kept players hooked every single day. But its downfall started when the grind became too much. The first major issue was progression burnout. New seas, new levels, and new tiers kept getting added, but each one required more and more grinding. What used to be fun exploration slowly turned into hours of repetitive farming just to stay relevant. Then came the power creep problem. Every update introduced fruits, weapons, and styles that made older gear useless. Players who invested hundreds of hours felt like their progress didn't matter anymore. Low-level players couldn't catch up, and high-level players got tired of resetting their builds after every patch. Royale High used to be the fantasy school of Roblox. Beautiful maps, glamorous outfits, seasonal events, roleplay freedom, and the legendary trading economy made it one of the most iconic games ever. For years, it pulled millions of players, especially during Halloween and Christmas, and creators built massive communities around outfit showcases, halo trading, and diamond farming. But its downfall came slowly, through controversy, delays, and a fading identity. The first big issue was the new school. The devs announced a complete game overhaul, promising a massive rebuild with new classes, systems, and visuals. Players were excited, until it kept getting delayed. Months became years, updates slowed down, and the community started losing patience. Meanwhile, the trading economy crashed. Halos became insanely inflated. Diamond grinding became repetitive, and new items weren't released consistently enough to refresh the market. Trading YouTubers began leaving, which hurt the game's visibility even more.